Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back inside the latest edition of Across the Cavs. Very excited to introduce today's guest. The Cavs are playing the Magic for the second time in 3 days. Reached out to him a few weeks ago. He said he'd absolutely be down. The Cavs and the Magic meet again. We bring on David Steele. He's been calling Magic games since year one in 1989. You think the Orlando Magic song has been around a while. He's been there all along, every step of the way, all the incredible memories in Orlando. David, excited to talk a little bit about your career, about Cavs Magic, and, all things Magic together, if you will.
I think it's going to be a good conversation. Timing is perfect, Zach. The teams having played each other Saturday, and now here we go again tonight. I am not there, by the way. I'm in my studio, my office in Orlando, in my home, where it is, I think right now it's dipped to 68 degrees, and it's getting a little chilly in here. Stepping outside, I might have to put a jacket on, a light jacket on later this afternoon. How are you guys doing up there in Cleveland?
Oh, man, it's a whole lot of snow, a whole lot of snow.
I know. But it's winter, right? So there you go.
It's winter, but this is a new one. This year is a new one, certainly. But, 15 inches. It's supposed to do it again next weekend. So, let's supposedly. So, let's at least there's this. The Heat game was canceled last week for condensation. At least there are some moved games, but at least that the courts are clean and they're able to play inside, right? No outdoor.
That's true. We don't expect any issues tonight in Cleveland, do we?
No, this will happen.
I wonder how many fans will be there. What do you think? What's your call?
I would say
my experience is Cavalier fans are going to show up.
Yes, I'd probably say it'll be about 75% full, maybe 80. I watched the Pistons game yesterday afternoon, and I saw it almost empty arena.
Yeah.
I know yesterday
it doesn't surprise me, but it would surprise me if the Cavaliers, like you said, are not well supported tonight.
Yeah. Oh, they'll be there. This matchup, and I'm sure you remember, first round 2 years ago, these games are definitely close, and it's funny because it seems for both the Cavs and Magic, neither are exactly where they were last year, even though the Magic do have the same exact record for the third year in a row, but it seems that a few things have changed, whether it's been personnel, whether it's been play style, and it just seems for both of these teams, opposing guys come in that aren't shooting that well and just hit all these threes. Example, I guess, would be for Cleveland, seeing Lonzo Ball and Naquan Tomlin both knocking down a couple of threes, both under 30% on the season. And for Cleveland, there was a game early in the season. Jamison Battle, who only plays about 8 minutes a night for the Raptors, hit 6 second-half threes and was like a plus 30 in 12 minutes in a single-digit win. Right? It's funny when these teams get together, they flip-flop.
Yeah, you never know. That's the thing about the NBA. There's just so many talented players. Anybody can go off on any given night, and that's what makes it so much fun. It makes it so special. It makes the game so interesting. Every game is a different story, and you never know who might step up and be a lead character in that story on a given night. You talk about Tomlin. He was terrific the other night for the Cavaliers, and I didn't really know much about him. I did my pregame prep and found out his backstory, and it's just a fascinating story. He's a hungry. He's a dog. He's fighting for his life, in the NBA, and those guys are always scary. He's a nice find for the Cavaliers, I think.
No, certainly, and we're at that time now where the two-way guys, Tomlin, Spencer Jones. I'm sure you've seen them on your prep list every night. All these guys that are about to run out of time. That teams like Dominic Barlow has been starting for the Sixers, but there's a rule where he and Jabari Walker couldn't play. I think unless they filled the roster. So they brought in Charles Bassey, who used to play in Philly a couple days ago. So I think it'll be interesting over these next 2 weeks with the trade deadline and two-way expirations, teams trying to clear roster space. I know the Warriors and Pat Spencer might have the same problem, although with injuries, maybe there's an exception. It's interesting, right, with this two-way rule and all these young guys that we've seen come up in recent years getting extra opportunity, and just they wouldn't have had a roster spot 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and now they're starting, they're playing 30 minutes, and they're making careers out of this.
Yeah, I think it's obvious that expanding the roster has not been a bad thing for the NBA. It's been great for players and players that don't have that high profile coming into the NBA, don't play big time college ball or are not high school All-Americans. those guys that are grinding it out, they've got a chance now to find a place in the NBA, which I think that's great. It's good for the league. I think it brings up the level of competition because those players are usually the guys that are just all over you from the opening tip to the final buzzer. Reminiscent of in the early Magic years, Darrell Armstrong was really the first that in our franchise history came out of nowhere. He was playing in Greece. And, John Gabriel discovered him, brought him over with Shaq the year the Magic went to the finals. Darrell was on the end of the bench, and he wore these crazy bright colored suits, but he was driving players crazy. He was driving the Brian Shaws, Penny Hardaways, just driving them crazy in practice because he played so hard all the time. He was so hungry, and he wound up being one of the most beloved players in Magic history. So you get people like that. The more of those you can get, I think it's great for the league.
Oh, absolutely. So, well, take Darrell Armstrong as our transition to our. We'll talk a little about your career, then get into the games and make a pick. You've been in the NBA, as mentioned, the entire existence of the Orlando Magic. That dates back to 1989, October of 89. Orlando Magic basketball officially started on the court. We've seen some incredible back and forth between these teams in the Dwight LeBron years. They met 7 games 2 years ago. In those Dwight LeBron years, you had LeBron's game winner in game 2. You've had other big performances. What's the craziest Cavs Magic memory that you've been on the call for that you remember from all these years of get together?
Well, in 09, Zach, I did radio. I don't know if you knew this, but I did Magic play-by-play on radio the first 9 seasons. But by 2009, I was on television, and by the time you get to the Eastern Conference Finals, the local TV announcers they're out. Now we're going to be out from the first round on with the new NBA contract with television. But back then, I didn't do the game, so I was at the games, but I didn't call them. But you mentioned LeBron's game-winning shot in Game 2. Rashard Lewis had the big game-winning shot in Game 1. I know Cleveland had a chance with the Mo Williams kind of desperation shot that almost went in. But so those 2 games were just incredible games. I would say Games 1 and Game 2 in that 2009 series. Winning Game 1 for the Magic was, at Cleveland. They don't win the series if Lewis doesn't make that shot. I don't see any way because it's probably going to go 7.
Yeah.
And if you get to a Game 7 against LeBron and that Cleveland team, you're probably not going to get a win. So I would say that Rashard Lewis shot, that Game 1 winning on the road, that was a great moment for that young Magic team that we really didn't know how good they were going to be in a postseason situation. Still pretty young. Dwight was in his 4th or 5th year in the NBA, and he was at the peak of his ability. I think those were prime Dwight Howard years. And then you could argue that LeBron was as good as he's ever been. I know he came back and led you guys to a championship in 2016, but he was a great player in 2009. Still had those young legs, and didn't he have 50 in one of the playoff games, something like that, in 2009? Yeah. He was outstanding. Dwight had 40 in game number 6, which closed out the series, and you had those 2 guys; they were unbelievable, both of them.
No, it was a time, certainly. And talking about using the word time, I mentioned. You've seen so many different changes in the NBA where the 3 originally you had the 2 bigs, and then we expand to power forwards taking mid-range shots, and then we start getting power forwards that shoot threes, and then we start getting positionless ball, and then we start getting 5 out, and then we start getting 3-point records and more free throws. And what's kind of been the craziest change maybe for you? And obviously the NBA it's changed so much from 89 to 2026, from just the type of players that we have, the players that are studied by these players. That's the biggest change and be the craziest thing from then to now. And I know it's a long time and a lot has happened, and you've seen all the
there's so many. Yeah. So many things I could say. The thing that jumps quickly to mind is the 3-point shot. And I think that's probably the biggest singular change in the league in the last 37 years. Um, let me just put it into historic perspective a little bit for you. Here's a little history I'm sure you don't know because it's an answer to a trivia question actually. If you're ever involved in that situation, you want to throw somebody off. The first college 3-point field goal made was the Western Carolina Catamounts in 1980 against Middle Tennessee State. And I was the play-by-play announcer on radio for Western Carolina. And the NCAA had given the Southern Conference permission to experiment with the 3-point shot. There had not been a 3-point field goal in college basketball until 1980. The first night of the season, Western Carolina hosted Middle Tennessee State. A young man named Ronnie Carr made a corner three from the left corner, and they stopped the game, presented the ball. It was the first 3-point field goal in college basketball history in 1980. That ball is in the Hall of Fame with Ronnie Carr's photograph, and I actually called that game on radio. But so that back then, even then, in college in the 80s, the 3-point shot was almost just used as an emergency weapon by practically every college team. The coaches didn't really utilize it unless they were behind, or maybe they have a great 3-point or outside shooter that they would occasionally utilize. I would guess teams average 4 or 5 3-point attempts per game, and that's the way it was in the NBA. When I came in 1989, Dennis Scott was, if he played today, he'd get up 12 or 13 3-point shots per game, and he would make 40, 42, 43% of them. Back then, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm guessing in his career he averaged 5, 6, probably max 3-point field goal attempts per game. So, and a team would average 6, 7, 8, 9, something like that. 10 was a big number if a team averaged 10 3-point attempts per game. Now you've got teams taking routinely 40 and 50 3-point field goal attempts per game. So I think that's really been the biggest change that I've seen in the 37 years in the NBA, that 3-point shot.
Yeah, and it's certainly something to see now. It wins you games, it loses you games. It's certainly been a theme the last couple Magic games. So I want to start with the Saturday game because those Grizzlies games, the Memphis just come out, both those London and Germany, and just light it up. So on Saturday, Orlando falling to the Cavs by 14. What did you see from the Orlando side that maybe they could have done better that they didn't, that ultimately led to their defeat?
Yeah, a couple of things for sure. And you mentioned earlier when we just got started, Zach, about how Cleveland has faced teams that have players that haven't shot the ball well, and all of a sudden they're knocking them in. And you mentioned Tomlin the other night. Well, the game before Cleveland on Thursday of last week, Orlando played Charlotte, and they had played the night before. I think it was against Cleveland, and they went they shot 17% from three and 34% overall, and they had just a miserable game. That was the night before they came to Orlando. So they come to Orlando and they can't miss. I mean, they came out, they made everything in the first quarter, jumped out to a 15 or 20-point lead in the first quarter and never looked back. So that sets up what happened Saturday. So already the Orlando team has returned from Europe after 8 or 9 days overseas, all-day flight back on Monday. They lost to Charlotte on Thursday, looked flat, looked tired, dead-legged. And, we had hoped for a better performance. And I thought the team played a lot better on Saturday against Cleveland. They had more enthusiasm, more energy, a little more pop, a little more hop in their step. And I thought they defended pretty well. I mean, you just have a guy in Donovan Mitchell that when he gets rolling, and you can see it. I mean, you can see it in his eye. You can see it in his body movement. When he gets it going, he's as difficult to stop as any player in the NBA. And he got it rolling, and they leaned on him in the second half, in particular the fourth quarter. I believe he played 36 or 37 minutes on the second night of a back-to-back, and he played 35 or something like that the night before. And he was as good in the fourth quarter, or he was better in the fourth quarter than he was when the game started. So I think the Magic's inability to contain not only Mitchell, but other drivers, and that's what Cleveland does. They're going to put their head down. They're going to get in the paint. They're going to spray the ball out to 3-point shooters, and they're tough. It's a good offensive team, really good. Kenny Atkinson, I think is a great coach, and he's got them playing very well right now. So I think that it starts for the Magic with stopping the ball out on the perimeter, and that's been a struggle for the ball club the last probably 3 or 4 weeks just before Europe.
Yeah, and what I thought was interesting about Mitchell in that game was, at least based on the first half, 9 points, zero in the second quarter. I thought he was just exhausted. Jumper
Hmm.
wasn't going. Nothing was hitting. I personally thought, maybe we'll get more Proctor minutes. They'll try to offset Mitchell's minutes, get some other guys in. But
Right.
fourth quarter comes around, and it's isn't it crazy? And I'm sure you've seen all these greats over the years, and there's just so many in today's game. Every team seems to have one of these guys. Out of nowhere, you flip a switch and they score 20 in the fourth quarter, and it's just like, where is this coming from?
Yeah, there's so much talent. Bancaro did it. I mean, Paolo flipped the switch in the fourth quarter, and kept the Magic somewhat attached, and at least had a little hope, a glimmer there for until maybe 2 or 3 minutes left in the game. But yeah, I mean, it's just those guys are special, and I don't know how many there are in the league, but there's probably 10 or 15 that there may be even more than that, probably more than that, that can do that. They can flip that switch and take over a game. But Banchero's one of them, and certainly Donovan Mitchell is clearly one. He'll be a 7-time All-Star here soon, right?
Yeah, and with Giannis out of the game, people they're ruminating on who starts, but I don't know if it's an East-West thing, if it's a positional thing, if it's a Europe versus America thing, because I know
Nobody knows.
nobody knows.
Somebody knows, but we don't know. Somebody in New York knows.
Unrelated, but I know he spent a very brief time with the Magic. With thoughts on Mac McClung not doing the dunk contest? He was interviewed by I don't know if he's an influencer. I hadn't seen the guy's content. A guy named Team Vectry, and he told him at the famous New York hooping gym where Hoodie Mello and Ben Simmons came out, and a bunch of other players had these big games. Said he's not doing it, but he's going to release the tape of his dunks after the contest. So now
Okay.
I know he spent. You did call one of his games, right? Didn't he get to the Magic for one game in the
Oh
big?
yeah, he played a few games. He got in a few games for the Magic. He didn't get really any kind of an opportunity to dunk or shoot or do much of anything. He played in garbage time a handful of games. It's a mystery because obviously he's a great athlete. He can dunk with the best all time, and he's got a really nice 3-point stroke. The numbers in the G League don't lie. I think he's got to be around 40% for his G League career.
Yep.
And you think those would translate, those abilities to the NBA, but he just hasn't found the right situation yet. Maybe that will still come for him, although he's had numerous opportunities now on NBA teams.
Yep.
And obviously there's a deficiency somewhere, and probably more on the defensive end. Half the game is played on the other side of midcourt, and that's where Mac probably doesn't come up to the standard for a lot of NBA coaches.
Of course, we'll see what happens, certainly, but excited to watch that tape after the contest. So, we're here because the Cavs play the Magic again tonight. Jalen Suggs just played in his first game in 22 days when coming back Saturday. Obviously, both Paolo and Suggs have been a bit outspoken, about the similar start and wanting to break away. How important is it, David, for the Magic to have a strong first quarter? Because it seems that's been the one that's been dogging them, even in recent wins, where they can't get off to that strong start to separate early and kind of make the other team have to adjust to them instead of vice versa.
Yeah, it has. It's been a recurring problem, and it didn't happen Saturday night. The team played really well in the first quarter defensively, especially. You mentioned Donovan Mitchell's struggles, and I thought the Magic came out with great purpose and focus on the defensive end. I think it was maybe 23-22 or something. It was a low scoring first quarter, so it was better. It was that clearly is a key for the Magic. They have shown the ability to come back, but you don't want to put yourself in that situation, especially on the road. And there's a lot of frustration in Orlando's locker room. There were high expectations coming into the season. Some people picked Orlando, some experts, to come out of the Eastern Conference. So, that certainly has been a disappointment. I think for everybody in that locker room, from the coaching staff on down to the last man at the end of the bench. But there's still time left, and it's the same story really for the last couple of years. Well, 2 years ago, the core of the team was largely healthy, and that was a 47-win season in the regular season. And you would think with the progression of Banchero and Wagner and Suggs, the core, that those numbers would go up. But all three of those players have spent so much time on the injured list that there has been no continuity for 2 years. I saw a stat just yesterday that I think it nailed down how many minutes Suggs, Banchero, and Franz Wagner have played together, how many games in the last 2 seasons, and it's like 13% of the games they've participated in, and a real small percentage of minutes played. But when they have played together, the team is one of the best plus-minus teams in the NBA. But, we haven't had them. So if Wagner can get back healthy after an ankle sprain that is problematic, you can keep Suggs healthy, and Banchero can stay healthy the rest of the way, with the addition of Desmond Bane. I think the team can still make a run. They're good enough to do that, but Wagner's not playing tonight. He's a key piece for the Orlando team. He just does everything. He's a Swiss Army knife. He's such a good player on both ends of the floor. Just high IQ basketball, typical European with great skills and great basketball IQ. So getting him back will be big, but he's not going to be there tonight. So I imagine the team, if they get a win, they're going to have to really grind it out with some great defense.
Certainly. You talk about one Wagner. I want to talk about the other one who returned in Germany, Mo Wagner, brother.
Yeah.
And honestly, great anecdote. I was listening to you and Jeff instead of the usual Cavs broadcast Saturday. We have some extra notes when we come in this morning. Didn't know that they had never been teammates pre-Orlando, or that they both wore the same number and so it's cool that Mo, I think Mo beat him there by half a season. So it's cool that he got to wear it. But I do want to talk about Mo Wagner, because in that series 2 years ago, he was the instigator. He was getting active on the glass. He was playing 18 minutes a game, and it seems like those 18 minutes led to 3 wins. He was active on the glass. He was outplaying Jared Allen. He was outdoing Mobley on the glass. He was spreading the floor. He was finishing everything. How important could he be? Obviously, I'm sure there's a minutes limit with how much time he missed. But it seems like the minutes he plays, even since his return, he just has such an energy that isn't replicated when he's off the floor. So how important could his minutes be? Could he swing things? And obviously, my other note here, I saw that Goga only played 5 minutes in the first half on Saturday. And in those 5 minutes, he was the game's leading rebounder out of 24. So it seems that they were giving good minutes and just not getting the opportunity to stay on the court.
Yeah, and Carter has struggled for the last couple of games, and in Europe and in Charlotte and now Cleveland. So, that's one of those situations where Wendell's been so good for most of the year until just recently. Coaches are reluctant to pull the plug to a large degree. But, yeah, Mo Wagner coming back throws another player into the mix at that position. Goga is an effective player off the bench as well, and Wendell has been solid for the most part of this season. But then Mo Wagner, you make the perfect point. He's a game changer. His energy, his enthusiasm, he gets the crowd going. He irritates the other team. He does all of those things. And, you talked about a minute restriction. He only plays 17 or 18 minutes a game when he's healthy. And, that's his normal number of minutes. That's when he's most effective, when he can impact the game in those short minutes. And he's only been playing 13 or 14 minutes since he came back from his knee injury. And he missed more than a year. He was out for 13 months after ACL surgery last January. So I think his minutes, you're going to see them back up. It's not going to take much to get his minutes back where he normally gets them, from 13 or 14 to 18. So, and he's been productive in these 4 games that he has played. Jeff Turner makes the point, he made it the other night, about his ability to sit all over there on the bench, get thrown into a game, and instantly make a positive impact with, whether it's a rebound or a good pass, a 3-point shot, take a charge. He gets, like I said, he gets everybody fired up, the teammates, crowd, and all of that. And Jeff says that's a skill. That's a rare skill that NBA players, not many of them, possess. And if you think about it, Zach, around the NBA, how many can you name that can come in short minutes and impact a game like Mo Wagner? He is a valuable player, and having him healthy the rest of the year and get his brother back, the team, like I said a moment ago, could make a run, I think.
Yeah, honestly, it's very few. Maybe you can count on one hand how many of those there are, and I'm certainly come the deadline, there'll probably be a few of those guys on the move going to teams that are missing those guys because the teams they're on haven't been able to have what they're missing. And so I want to talk about the Cavs side here. Obviously, it's their second game in 3 days, their first two this season. And Cavs taking the 14-point win in game one. You talk about the Orlando side and Wendell struggling, and other than Paolo's late burst, some things were missing. What Cavs, other than Mitchell, do you expect? I mean, obviously Donovan's the main guy. You stop Donovan, there's a good chance you'll be in it till the end. But what other Cavs do you think the Magic really need to key in on to ensure that they give themselves the best chance to win? And if for some reason the offense starts slow, enough time to shake that off?
Well, the guy that jumped out to me the other night was Tyson. Just incredible shooting ability, but more than that, just a really smart, no mistake type of player. Just makes the right play. I saw that repeatedly the other night. I really like him. He's not outside of Cleveland, and I hadn't really focused in enough on him before the game on Saturday to really understand how good he is, how valuable he is to your team. But I thought he was great. And, I don't know what you do with him. If he has any daylight at all, he's going to shoot that three. And it's such a good looking shot. Every time he released it, I thought it was going to go in. And again, he also can put his head down and get into the paint, and he makes good decisions when he gets in there, or he did Saturday night. So, he's a valuable guy. Mobley's defense is what really stands out, because he made it really tough, and he does this every night for you guys. I know he makes it very tough to score in the paint around the basket. He and Jared Allen are very good. Cleveland's right there with the best teams in the NBA in protecting the rim and making it tough for you to score. I think their defensive percentage, opposing teams' percentage in the paint right at the rim, a restricted area field goal is about 60%, which might even lead the league. I know it's 1 or 2. So it's because of Allen and Mobley, those two guys in particular, that make it really tough for you to score inside. And that's where Banchero does a lot of his work. He powers in there, and he was denied, especially early in the game, because those guys are so effective at the rim. But he figured it out better in the fourth quarter, and he made a couple of threes. But Cleveland's just got it's a great roster, and you're missing some key players. So I don't see any reason why Cleveland can't make a really strong push the rest of the way.
No, certainly. Might get Sam Merrill back tonight. The stat I've been following all year, they're 16-8 when he plays, which puts them at 11-12 when he does not. They were 11-3 at one point in his first 14. You see the way he shoots, spaces the floor. There was the talk over the summer about, because they gave there was Merrill and Jerome were both up for the same amount. They could only pay one. Most expected it to be Jerome. You consider the injury history, right? The year before he missed 80 games, struggled a little bit in the playoffs. Merrill spaces the floor, and he turned into a guy that's averaging 14 a game after almost being out of the NBA after winning a title as a rookie. It took him 3 years to find NBA minutes consistently, and he should be coming back, and they might get Hunter back. But I just want to finish on Tyson. There was the Sixers game. It was now 10 days ago. Time really flies. Really flies. Cavs and Sixers going to the wire. Tyson just hitting everything. He finished the night 13 of 17 and scored 39.
I watched that game. I saw the fourth quarter, and incredible.
Unbelievable. And then on the last shot, everyone dreams of hitting the game winner. You're in your driveway, 3, 2, 1, Kobe, game. And what does he do on the last play? But he passes. Mobley dunks because Embiid had an overplay. And it feels like a lot of teams, when you're trying to take that next step, if you've been struggling in a season, there's going to be some role player that's been very good, may have an off night in between, and just comes back with one of those, wow, that's insane potential games. And right, any team that has that, it just feels like it's very tough to stop in a situation like that.
Yeah, if you can find a player like that, just totally unexpected. I don't know if Cleveland, if Kenny and the staff or the front office, if they felt like he was going to be this good or not. Maybe they felt like the ceiling was possible, but I mean, what he's doing is really impressive. He's older, he's not, as he's not a 19, 20-year-old,
Yeah,
1 year, one and done guy. So I think that makes a difference. He's got some, maturity about him, and he's a valuable guy. I tell you what, I like him a lot. Great player.
3 colleges in 3 years, which I learned on the broadcast. I'd only ever checked the Cal. I was unaware that he did one of those different school every year things. It does. It happens a lot now, where you'll go and you'll play at one, but finished at Cal.
I think it was a Chris Beard. As I recall, it was a Chris Beard. He committed to Texas, and then didn't Beard leave, and then he went to Texas Tech. I can't remember the details, but then he went back to Texas, and he bounced around a little bit, but
He did.
He found his way to the NBA, and he's a good one.
He did, certainly. And so, all right, we've talked about the Cavs. We've talked about the Magic. All right, David. So obviously you won't be on the call tonight, but it will be interesting because the Cavs announcers, I don't know if this is a weather thing or what, but the Cavs announcers, John Michael and Brad Daugherty, will call this game nationally. I don't think I've ever seen a full team pairing call a game nationally before. Very interested to see that. Obviously every commentator has a different style, but seeing their style on Peacock, I believe for John Michael, it's his first national TV game that he's done since joining the NBA in 20.
Yeah, he's a good one. They'll be fine. I'm sure.
Oh,
NBC
absolutely.
And Peacock will be happy with him. Who's working with him? Is it Brad again tonight?
Yeah, Brad, who has actually done a couple games on Peacock already this year, I believe.
Brad's outstanding, and he was such a great player too. I've known him actually since he was a high school player in Asheville, North Carolina. I mentioned the Western Carolina broadcasting that I did. Brad Daugherty was a high school star in the early 80s at Swannanoa High School in Black Mountain, North Carolina, just outside of Asheville. So I saw him play. I met him as a high school player. I've known him a long, long time, and he's one of the best people in the NBA you'll ever meet, and a great broadcaster. Great guy, great broadcaster. They'll do really well tonight.
Didn't he go to college at 16 as well?
He was young. Yeah, he graduated smart. Good, great student. Graduated at, I think, 16. He might have been 17. He might have been 17 when he went to North Carolina. But he was young when he came into the NBA, even after several years, 20 years old. Yeah, he had a great career. Those Cleveland teams were some of my favorite teams all time, really, and watching opposing teams, and with Mark Price and Larry Nance and Brad Daugherty. Those were really fun teams to watch. They were very good.
And you got to call Mark Price for a very little while. I think he was injured and only played a handful of games, but he did get on the Magic. I know that.
He did. Chuck Daly. Those were the Chuck Daly years, somewhere around 97 or 98. Mark did play. Good guy, too. Great guy.
All right, so finishing up here, David. Ultimately, we got Cavs, we got Magic. We talked both sides. We talked history, matchups. What one thing will ultimately decide the victor in tonight's contest?
Well, I don't know if there's one thing, but I know one thing for the Magic. If they don't make shots, open shots, it's not going to go well. And that's been a recurring theme here recently in Berlin and in London, and then against Charlotte on Thursday, and again Saturday against Cleveland. Those 3-point percentages. And, you saw the Cavaliers the other night. They played some zone, quite a bit of zone. They packed the paint. They're going to keep Banchero from getting a lot of anything easy at all at the basket. And those 3-point shots are going to be there for Orlando's perimeter players, and they have to make them. They have to step in confidently and make the shots. And if they don't, then it's going to be another long night for Orlando. And I'm pretty sure that's how Cleveland will play it defensively again tonight.
my last question for you on the Orlando side, because a lot's been made. Players have players make comments. You think about how long the coach is with the team. How important do you think playoff success for the Magic is this year for this regime to kind of have a long-term opportunity to shine together, from the staff to the players
Yeah,
and everything in between?
that's a good question. And because the expectations were so high, I do think it's imperative that the team not only get to the playoffs, but I think it's really important that they have success in at least the first round. And that will only happen if everybody can come back and they can finish the last 25, 35 games with a healthy roster, somewhat healthy at least. Guys they're going to be in and out, maybe a game or two, but uh, I don't think the team can handle more 2, 3, 4 week absences from its core. But if they do get healthy, then I think they can do that, and I think it's important that they do it. Now, if the injuries continue and Franz struggles coming back, and somebody else goes down, Suggs has another issue or something like that, then they'll have something to say. Well, if we're healthy, things will be better next year. But I think it's important that the team have success in the postseason, and that'll happen, I believe, if the team is healthy.
Well said. Absolutely agree. There's never a night in the NBA anymore where you can look at a matchup and say, yeah, I think the guy's got it. It's everyone's got something. Everyone's making adjustments. Everyone, with all the new technology, it's also a lot easier to go through tape and find specific plays. I mean, they've always had this, but I know every team has coaches. Their only job is to clip. We need to watch all this. Guys are watching games, especially with social media, clip aggregation. And I also heard, this was new to me. I'm trying to remember I don't know if it was I watched a lot of NBA this weekend. And I think there was some guard, and he said he watched and this is someone that's been killing it this year, watches all the tape, watches how they guard SGA, how he plays, all these guys play. And that's how he plays at such a high level. I don't think it was in the Cavs Magic game. Now, I don't know if you caught this
No,
one.
I don't think it was.
But they watch so much footage and they're so into the game that they just know how to go against anybody. I wish I had the answer as we're wrapping up. So it'd be a great closing note. Bulls. It's going to hit me as soon as we sign off. But David, a pleasure having you on. Thank you for lending some time today, and very excited. Follow the Magic and yourself over the course of the rest of the year as these guys get together yet again. All right, Zach. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Thank you. So for David Steele, announcer for the Orlando Magic, Zach Weiss with you across the Cavs, Network 216. And we'll see you after the game tonight.